Hello again, Steve here. I just thought of something that surely it is important to many of us in terms of our quality of life, and that is marriage. Now, marriage, obviously, and especially today, can be between a variety of different types of people, right? Typically, a man and a woman. Today, a man and a man, a woman and a woman. The legal aspect of it, I don't think makes any difference whatsoever, or even the gesture, perhaps, of commitment potentially, and so on, towards each other. Essentially, it's the union. Essentially, it's the union of two people. And when I say people, I mean it could be persons in the vernacular, or persons in the legal sense, or it could be man and man, man and woman and woman, so on and so on, right? But if we look back at it in terms of its original purpose, of course, had nothing to do with men and men and women, right? It had to do with the protection of women and children, essentially. If you think back to the days of old, you had women being very vulnerable because they were pregnant and or lactating for about 20 years. And you had dependent children. There was no welfare state, right? You had tribal situations where you had an unwritten law which said that a man who's responsible for impregnating a woman or so on is bound to that responsibility. And so you had this pair bonding that would take place that was enforced by strict ostracism to go against it and so on, by a strict law, basically, like a common law of, you take responsibility for your actions. And so that was a man and a woman, and that's mostly what I'm going to talk about, because that's most common and most pertinent to what it is I'm going to talk about later on here. Now, there were different processes or different ways of looking at marriage, I think, and I'm going to be guessing here. I mean, obviously, there was the concept of a man and a woman agreeing amongst other people. It's like a witness situation. So everybody has witnessed these two people saying, we're going to be together, we're going to take care of raising our children. And everybody then in the group would be somehow agreeing in a way to sort of be supportive, to make sure that works. If there's somebody who's having trouble, help them out and so on, right? So it's like a group effort. And as things developed, I would say probably there was different concepts of how that could be done. With the concepts of gods and deities, it wasn't so much just a man and a woman marrying. There was the man and the woman becoming one as a single. Because the woman, as patriotic as it may sound, symbolic or whatever, the woman never really had a personhood in the society. The woman would leave her family and join the family of the man, become part of the man, essentially. That's why women would typically take the man's name. Women didn't have a family name so much as they would throw it off and join the new tribe. And the real marrying then took place between the new entity, the man and the woman, and God, right? So that was the marriage. The real marriage was a covenant between this entity called a new married couple and God. And that's why it became a religious ceremony. And in a way that kind of makes sense, because if we think about our frailties, and even if, no matter whether you think God is true or not, but just the concept of this perfection of the beyond, of us not being able to attain, because we all have our frailties, right? The woman has her frailties, the man has his frailties, and it's almost an impossible thing to go through the trials of childhood and perhaps children dying and all that sort of thing. And to be able to look to the other side of the partnership being God, this all-perfect entity concept, is sort of consoling. So that's probably could have been part of it. And of course, governments today are the new gods, and they do the same thing really, because there is a legal marriage, and there's the person, which is the corporate identity of each individual, which become one in a way in this married partnership. It's like a It's not a limited partnership, but it's a partnership. It's a new corporation, essentially. It's like a new corporation. It is a new corporation. It's an incorporation of two persons. And there's the marrying of the state through the licensing process, through the process of doing what is otherwise illegal. Marriage is illegal in the legal system unless you pay for permission to do it. And then, of course, there's also common law, which is that I know government's going to say that, not anymore anyways, that a man and woman can't sleep together and do what they got to do, or do what they're going to do, and therefore they just claim a marriage took place. They call it common law, but that goes back a long ways, and it's what they call common law is not actually common law anymore. It's that's another story for another time. I'll leave that out for now. But anyways, well, so what is best? I mean, what is best in terms of marriage? This is one man's opinion. Well, I think it's figuring out what's best, because there's different purposes for marriage these days. I mean, obviously a man and a man getting married are not going to, by themselves, create children. They might adopt children. A woman and a woman by themselves are not going to create children. They might adopt children. Or they might, import sperm from somebody into one or the other, or both. Which to me is completely foreign to the way things happened. But nevertheless, they happen. I'm not going to place judgment on that. But for those who are getting married, I would say, obviously it seems to make sense from a rational standpoint to figure out what is wanted in a marriage. Lots of people get married just for friendship, companionship, and so on. No intention of having children. So that sort of throws out the whole intent. I mean, I don't know why people would bother getting married in a case like that. I think it has to do with more of like a party, a celebration, and like a cruise ship vacation or something as an excuse to throw a big bash. But it doesn't seem to make any sense in terms of the original concept of it. And it's, hey, it's their money. Why not? Eh? It doesn't. I mean, but that once again is part of the making of asking the question of what is wanted, right? So, well, from a philosophical standpoint, I don't think there's any need in the God thing or the state thing. I mean, because philosophically, two people can make a decision, right? They can make a rational decision whether they want to get married for companionship or for travel purposes or for having children or supporting one another or whatever. From the irrational standpoint, though, I'd say the concept of God and state, which is one and the same, really, is a good idea. Because if we're going to admit to ourselves that we got no power to control ourselves and we're going to go chasing off after this and being irresponsible, then it's good for us to hire some hired guns to make sure that we look after and behave the way we said we would, because we might, as soon as we said we're going to do it, we're not going to do it because we forget or we're just uncontrollable. I would say that that's important, but I'm being a little bit facetious. But nevertheless, it's true, really, right? I mean, a lot of people are extremely irresponsible, and if it wasn't for the fact that they made an agreement to support their kids or whatever, they won't do it. So that's not the ideal situation to be in. Obviously, hopefully people are rational, in which case they can make decisions on their own as civil and adult human beings. Ideally, in my opinion, if it's two people getting married, for whatever reason that they're getting married, hopefully part of the reason includes neither really needing each other so much, because needy people are, well, that's not a good basis to be in a relationship with somebody, I think, because it'll be unbalanced, right? Not so much needing each other, but wanting each other and loving each other, right? And being there not so much to mooch off of or to, have the other one take care of aspects of themselves, but to be on a journey, to be people who are able to walk alone anyway, but feel a fuller life mutually, to be able to walk hand in hand, side by side, figuratively speaking, be together, supporting each other's aims in life, and cheerleading for and being there for them. That, I think, is a more empowering way to have a relationship, which can be very, very fulfilling, because those two people can experience pleasure together in many ways, right? On a very deep, intimate level, both physically, emotionally, and intellectually intimate with each other. And in the case of men and women, if they so want, they can experience the fruits of those intimacies, which are eventually children, hopefully, if they're fertile. And with this loving and caring way that they are together, if they pass that on through their children, well, certainly they're going to experience the hardships of those children. They're going to experience the joys of being with those children. But what's going to happen, I think, is they're going to peacefully raise those children. And in terms of our grander scheme of things, our greater quality of life for humanity going forward, if children are raised peacefully, we are certainly bound to have a better world as humanity. Because there's so much evidence today that points towards the root of all evil, the basis of war, the basis of politics as we know it, the basis of psychopathy, criminality, all these sorts of things, is based in child abuse. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? For the most part, for the vast majority of the part, because, I mean, we are the net sum of all that we've experienced, and so much that we have experienced is in our formative years. So I think that's, you know, and that brings us right full circle. I mean, because the origin of marriage had to do with the proper raising of children, right? Society helping out with the proper raising of children. I'm just going to cancel that for a moment. And if we have peacefully raised children, we've fulfilled that proper raising of children, I think, through marriage, whatever form it takes. Hopefully a rational approach to people getting together and making it, if they're going to decide to have children, making it an effort that the children are really important and they're individuals and they got to be treated peacefully, just like we want to be treated peacefully. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this? Marriage, is it important to the quality of life? I mean, all the numbers of marriages are going down and they're failing all over the place. But is it still important? Is it still an important institution for our life as a civilization, at us individually as well? I think it is. I think it has to be approached in a certain way and it can be improved upon. But nevertheless, I would say it is important and it will continue to be important if life itself is important. Great chatting. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.